Hey guys, we missed you. And by me, by we, by me, by we, I mean me, Megazard, and him, Hajad. We're back
Yes, it's him,
with Untier Talk.
and it's him and it's him. It's him and it's me.
Well, no, it's him and it's me. It's not him, and me. You know.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, we're
Whatever
going
you
to
say.
talk about the VR update this week. Basically, we were gone for a while because this was the only bit of news happening, and then it was supposed to come out like weeks ago, and then just didn't because it just got delayed. So we got a VR update. Next week we'll be back for Classic, and then I don't know. As soon as we hit Alpha, like we'll definitely be here talking a lot of stuff for sure. But we're not gonna do one if there's like, you know, it's in between the times and there's literally nothing to talk about. Like NU got formed, but we don't really have stats for PU yet. So what are you gonna do? We've been over
Yeah.
this.
Plus, yeah. Plus, add on to that, like Pokemon Home is going to be released soon, so there's going to be a major shake-up in basically every tier.
Yeah,
What's
it's
ahead?
like how do we know what's even coming to PU when we don't even know all the
Exactly.
ramifications of home and stuff. So that'll be fun. But for now, there's a VR update. I'll probably remember to link it in the description. Maybe I won't. It's basically just the very last update uh, of the SM meta. We're on the final VR, and this was a bunch of stuff that became a lot more obvious post LTPL, and we hadn't really gotten around to. It's really interesting to look back and see this is finally the update that we put Jellicent in S, which was almost entirely unanimous. Everyone but Specs voted for that because like Jellicent's been really
Yeah,
crazy.
it's uh, it's an interesting Pokemon because it can do so much on every single type of team. Now that like Trick Room has become like a big thing, it can fit on literally any type of team you want it to, and still do like tons of work, add loads of defensive utility. So yeah, it's definitely worthy of S rank.
Yeah, I can't even begin to argue against it, and I'd never really got why Specs wasn't a fan. Like I haven't seen a lot of real pushback to Jellicent in S. It's just especially with Trick Room being a strong win con now too. It does literally everything really well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that wasn't even the only
Yeah,
thing that like everyone voted for. There's a
yeah.
lot of
You'll get.
stuff where we're all like, yeah, this everyone agrees this absolutely has to happen. We just didn't get to it till now, and this is definitely one of those things.
Yeah, and I think you'll find just in general there will be a few like contrarian opinions, which I think is healthy when in a council. Like,
Mm.
if you have everybody just says yes to everything, it's just a bit like boring and not really like you don't really accomplish much. But if you have a few people that say no or yes to a certain thing that's contentious, it can be useful to have that type of insight. So yeah, I don't blame Specs at all.
Yeah, I see like two or three things that are unanimous looking down this sheet, but pretty much everything is not. So there's that. The next item of business is we dropped a low on Sandslash a little bit. A few people wanted it to go to A minus, but most people were fine with it staying in A as like this pretty good mon that does a lot of things, but isn't quite like the go-to rocker that and go-to scarfer that it like always was uh, in the past meta. I think it hasn't been for a while, so it seems weird to say that, but like it was super ubiquitous and definitely an A plus mon then, and definitely not one now. And the only question was
Yeah,
how far to drop.
yeah, I think it sort of had something to do with Jellicent becoming ridiculous. Like a lot of the viability
Yeah,
Lolan Sandslash came from like the Scarf set, and as soon as you introduce a Trick Room Wincon that abuses the frick out of Choice Scarf or Lotus Slash, it just becomes really difficult to use and justify, especially because you're not getting that spin off consistently. I know on my teams I basically pivoted from most of the time using Choice Scarf or Lotus Slash to becoming like most of the time Choice Scarf Rotom Frost, just
mm-hmm.
because it's more reliable at getting off the hazards.
Yeah, yeah. The not getting spin blocked is really huge because Jellicent hurts that, but also like spikes in general have become a larger thing more recently, which always hurts like every spinner. So especially this grounded one that is often not using recovery at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, We also bumped Drampa up to A plus. That would be the next thing. I'm just going down the sheet that's linked in the post. Oh no, it's also the same order as what's in the actual post. Okay, we bumped Drampa up to A plus because it's like very different from Jellicent and Slash. It's not like super splashable and everything, but when you do put it on a team, it's like, oh, just gets all the kills and is great defensively and can run defog and like the both the offensive and the defensive sets really weren't being experimented with and messed with as much before LTPL rolled around, and I feel like the ranking was mostly just like specs. And this was Grandpa getting even better. It's like, oh, look at all this other stuff we can do. We can do with it. So, not too surprising.
Yeah. Before I think that entire, I guess, saga with Snake and LTPL and all those types of tournament, the playoffs and whatever, I feel like there was like two Drampa sets. You had the Max Spadef Calm Mindset, which was sort of like the Victory Bell block with whatever. And then you had the spec set, which was just a pure breaker, like much apart from break. And I think towards the end of the meta, people realized that the Spadef set was just sort of like weak, and it was just laying too many things that shouldn't be switch in. So yeah, more people began to use Assault Vest, myself included, like that. And I feel like the Assault Vest set was really the thing that made Drampa A plus because it was the most splashable thing. Like you can just run Assault Vest Drampa and say, okay, this is my special meta check. I just need an ice resist now, and say to that. So I think that set in particular helped Drampa a lot become more accessible. Obviously, it called well with Ferroseed, given like a really good fire resist as well. Yeah, it's I think a lot of this, it's like got problems with sustainability, given that it doesn't have recovery anymore, but flashability and just how it like goes about loading offensive pressure is really really useful.
Yeah, I agree. On the flip side of like all these things that formed a confluence to put Drampa up, things like Jellicent and Victory Bell being bigger and ice types being less big. Silvally Fairy, we bumped up a couple ranks because it's just easy to slap on every team as a good win con, a good defensive mon.
Yeah.
Like, I can put this on literally every team. I guess it should be A plus.
Yeah, no, Silvally Fairy is one of them things where I was skeptical of it initially, but as soon as I saw that you literally could put SD Silvally Fairy on literally every single type of team, doesn't matter whether it's hard offense, like hyper offense with hazards, or like a stall, and then you have a wink on Silvally Fairy at the end, providing some sort of defensive utility as well there. That's super useful in a Pokemon as well. U-turn is such a great pivoting. It's got so many like plus sides to it, so yeah, definitely worthy of A plus in my.
Yep, absolutely. Misharna, we also bumped up a bit. It's again a lot of this Trick Room win con that we've talked a lot about, how that somehow became the best thing that we have to sweep teams, and this was one of the few things that was totally unanimous because Trick Room's annoying, dude. I'm a little sad that I was the first person to bring it back, really. Someone else probably would have, so I don't feel too bad about it, but like, yeah, I don't. It's not even Misharna's fault. We just need other setup sweepers. But for now, it's just so good.
Yeah, I absolutely abused that. It's such a reliable win con, and it also provides such great defensive utility, like over the course of the game as well. You just need to sort of avoid getting pursuit trapped. It's the same thing with Jellicent to some extent. You just need to sort of make sure that the Skuntank doesn't exist, bring it in willy nilly.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a ridiculous win con.
And those like, five. Sorry, I thought that was. I thought you were done. Sorry, so you can. I was like, how is he going to say more about Misharna? It's a very one-dimensional thing.
The Psychium Z thing is like that does so much damage. It's like insane how much damage it does.
Yeah, Z moves are very silly, very very silly mechanics. Z moves are complete jokes. Those are kind of the 5 nominations I think were the really big, like, upper rank changes, and there are other things like around the same area, but I don't think anything else is as noteworthy as what we had. Like going down, we bumped up Rotom Frost a bit. Yeah, it's a bit better. We've seen it on more teams. It's gotten more usage. It's a pretty good mon. Okay, sure. Defog's
Yeah.
also more important. Like sure. We bumped Rotom.
Was it? There was a set that was going around recently, wasn't it? Like, was it sub defog with Iapop? Not Iapop. Yeah, with Pinchberry. Was that a set that was going around recently? I can't remember.
Maybe. I mean, people run sub Pinchberry and people run defog Pinchberry, and maybe someone's like, I'm gonna run both instead of sub Wisp or whatever. Like maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
We dropped Lycanroc and Persian because their checks got a lot more common. Like Scarf Ape was not as big of a thing when they got higher. There wasn't so much Torterra running around. Clefairy got better. Like just a lot of things for these two. Just not really great setup sweepers anymore, and they got outclassed by our Trick Room buddies.
Yeah, I think that was the key distinction that we have here. I think especially in Lycanroc's position, where it really didn't offer defensive utility, and was sort of difficult to set up and was like walled by a few things. You kind of want something. You don't want something on your team to just do absolutely nothing in the entire game, apart from just like I guess do the occasion like end game. But
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
it's yeah, you want things on your team, especially if you're running balance, to provide some type of defensive utility, and just Lycanroc fell off those types of teams.
Mhm. Yeah, and Persian has defensive utility, but that
Yeah,
involves like losing awfully to Silvally Fairy and whatever. So
exactly.
not super ups for that. Uh, we bumped Bronzor and Carbink a bit because those have become more, I don't know, defensively notable. Um, like they're just as abusable, but people have just found better ways to like fit them on teams and do more things. And Crowbink being a bit better of a win con, you know.
Yeah, I think I think it's the key thing with these things is that they check so much of the meta that people just sort of say, it's worth it to have that type of really obvious abuse factor, because then you can just say, well, I can abuse whatever they're trying to abuse back because I'll have an extra offensive Pokemon to slap on the end of my team. So it becomes like I'll take the hit here and then I'll be able to use a more crazy offensive core, which is a cool feature of both Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. We dropped Floatzel. I think this is one of like the more random changes that if you're listening to us breaking down the update, you might at first be like, well, why did that happen? That seems a bit out of nowhere. Um, but Floatzel's really just so. It's always been really weird in this meta, and it came back a little bit into prominence when CB Pursuit with Water Veil was really nice for Frostlass. And since then, we never really bothered to drop it. Um, but the more Jellicent gets used, the more
Yeah, I was thinking.
Torterra usurps Mudsdale and Regirock, the more this thing is just like, wait, it has four move slot syndrome, and it wants to do like a million things, and it needs to do all of them to not get walled by something. It's just really, really awkward.
Yeah, I think the thing that tipped it over the edge was I think we all considered after Frostlass left to drop Frostlass, but it was just sort of like, Frostlass Floatzel was like it was really good in that meta. It was on the door to like A minus, so we're thinking, maybe B plus is right for it. But like as soon as Torterra dropped and the prominence of Jealous and stuff, as you said, it's definitely fallen out of favor.
Yeah, and it's like several people are like maybe we should even put this down to B minus. So that didn't happen. Whereas on the complete opposite end of things, Aggron got dropped from B plus to B, but it's like a really strong B, not like maybe B minus B. It's still a real good, real nice mon to use. Um, but the problem is at this point, it's either really matchup dependent or you gotta be messing with Magnet Rise sets or like Endeavor Rocks or something because what it used to do with like the big CB wall breaking or the offensive rock sets, they can work, but they really can struggle in matchups where you see a lot of fast Torterra, Mudsdale still around a lot. Like the meta doesn't really favor its wall breaking compared to other things.
Yeah, I think yeah, one of the nice things that Aggron had going for it in the past was just the sheer amount of like just power it had. So like even if you had Mudsdale, you could just spam head smash just like brainlessly. Eventually things would happen. But now the meta has gone more like everything is way more offensive and less passive things in general. So your opportunities goes down to like break on stuff. Like you're not going to be as consistent getting those opportunities to break, and then also um, like speed tier really sucks. Like you compare like Aggron to like Stoutland. Stoutland's gonna consistently break for you if
Yeah,
he gets the opportunity, and Aggron is just too slow to do what Stoutland does. It like just as a very basic example.
absolutely, absolutely. And it doesn't help that random special wall breakers kind of took over a bit, where you see more of the Jellicent and the Victory Bell and the whatnot. We dropped Doug Trio. Who even knew it was that high? I'd like this mon to be good
Yeah,
again. It's real funny. I think it's something that can fit into the meta in a really cool way. But ugh.
yeah, I think the only reason really why Doug Trio was like B minus at this stage was because like it had that. You remember at the start of the meta or like the start of the tier where it was like really everybody was like on the hype train. It was like subtoxic. Oh my god, it's the best
Subtoxic
silhouette.
was pretty cool though.
And
Like
then it was like, yeah, it was a really cool mon, really good set. And I still think it has like a place in the meta. Like subtoxic is great if you want to toxic a Mudsdale or force a toxic on Torterra or whatever, right?
mhm.
That's a really cool idea. It's got great speed, good
Yeah,
heal stab.
but
But
really
yeah,
inconsistent and situational, I think, are the best ways to put this.
exactly, yeah, 100%. And then also on top of that, like nobody has been using it at all. Like since that like early start, nobody has used it. Like literally none. Nobody
Yeah,
has.
and the lack of like
Like
innovation
really.
and seeing where this mon can go certainly doesn't help. Plus, we just have a lot of toxic spammers, and I feel like at this point, if you're not ready for something like that to keep spamming toxic, then you're also probably not ready for like just toxic protect Regirock is probably going to be pretty annoying to your team, or maybe you're going to be
Exactly.
also really weak to T spikes, and that's kind of on you. Although it is a bit unique, like it'll beat Victory Bell, that beats some of those mons, but yeah, that's kind of the issue. We dropped Golem and Probopass because I mean, once we got Torterra, they got a lot worse, and Golem
Yeah.
was never amazing. Like it can kind of do CB or like Custap rocks or whatever, but it's not. Golem doesn't do much, and Probopass like doesn't really trap anything.
Yeah. Golem. I feel like Golem was like a hybrid between. At a certain point, it was like the hybrid between Regirock and like Metang, where like you had one which was the normal resist, one which is like the normal and rock resist, and then the Golem which was like a rock resist and sort of a normal resist, but it was just sort of like in the middle,
Mm.
and it had a decent amount of offensive pressure with Dual Stab. So I think it's like worthy of like C rank. C is a good rank for it, but like um, aside from that, it's a bit dodgy.
Yeah, and Torterra really came in for like, oh, you want a rock resist? I'll resist some rock for you. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
that was unfortunate.
There's like
Um,
Edgequake. Oh, I never heard of her.
yeah, literally better Edgequake with Woodhammer Earthquake Stab. Jesus. What else we do? We unranked Manectric because, oh my god, Manectric's bad. Like,
I hate Manectric. I think it's really, really bad. But um, I was sort of sad because it does have like a cool thing going for it where it can revenge a low slash and hail. That's like you've got going for it. But I mean,
it's just not a big relevant
that's
need.
such a exactly. It's such a niche scenario, right? Where you already have a niche playstyle, which is hail with a load of slashes, the sweeper, right? That's a really niche like scenario playstyle, just in general. And then you're put in the scenario where all of your checks to said Alola Slashes died, and now you need to revenge kill it. So now you have like this really weak, awful choice scarfer just for this one scenario.
Yeah,
It just doesn't make sense to me.
I don't even think that gets the heart of it. Because say you want to use it as just like a regular Scarfer, not like oh, it's specifically the one that beats a low slash. You're like maybe this Scarf with Volt Switch is cool. It's for these offensive Volt Turn teams, and you know it's not really fun with those. Every time you face a Lantern, a Mudsdale, or a Torterra, you have to get every turn perfectly. You can't predict
Oh
wrong.
no, yeah, no,
And
you have to play out of your skin to beat a lantern with Manectric. That is such a hard wall to it. Like it just makes me shiver, to be honest.
yeah, it's just okay. Silvally Poison, we bumped this from C plus all the way to B, which I'm in favor of. The way I put it in my little blurb is that it's like A minus in how splashable it is and how much I want to put it on like every team for defensive utility. Silvally Poison and Silvally Fairy, just so good at that. But in terms of how good it actually is, like it'll do the things you want it to, but it's pretty weak and it'll get chipped and it's like a C on that level. But it's like an A minus in how much I want to use it. That kind of just balances out. That's kind of where I see this mon. Like it really works as a nice glue, but then it just feels so mediocre. Weird mon.
Yeah, I think that comes like partly because how much um, pressure you put on it, like how much like rolls and things you're trying to squeeze onto it. Like it checks so many things, and it also has to defog, and it also has to do the pivoting thing, and it also has to do some more resisting. And it's that's a lot of pressure to put on one thing. So that's probably why it feels like a C rank mod. But you want to put it on everything because it does everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? So yeah, I agree with the B rank. I think the meta at the moment, like it rewards a lot teams that are really offensive, and because you're putting so much compression in this one Pokemon, your team is naturally going to be more offensive, more free to do whatever it wants when you have Silvally Poison on board. So yeah,
Yeah.
I was in favor of that to be.
Yeah, and like it started out as just this like Victory Bell check because we needed a fat poison for Victory Bell, but uh it just like ended up being able to do so much more than that. Like Silvally Fairy became a big offensive threat. Hey, that's a nice check to that. Probably other stuff that I'm not going to be able to name off the top of my head. That's okay.
The fight is a big one.
Yeah, the fighter is okay.
Girder and Primate.
Scarf Primeape is nice. It'll absorb T spikes, which tried to make a little bit of a comeback. It's not weak to Electros. That's nice.
You can probably 1v1 a Regirock if you really want.
I kinda not really, and it depends on your moveset. Uh, anyway, we bumped Simisear to A plus. This feels like it should have happened a long time ago. In fact, I was really surprised when Teddy voted no, and I don't even know why. Like I'm sure he had some reason. I just did not actually see it. Because this mon kinda nuts. It's a really it is like a top tier wall breaker in our meta. It's that strong Firemon that we've never had great resists for, and Z moves are just stupid. So I guess it'll just blow its way through Lantern at +2. It just kills AV Lantern with Z Grass Knot. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah, it's a strong monkey, that's for sure. I think the key thing that allows it to really thrive in this meta is in other metas where like teams were like it you needed that Simisear slot to other thing. Now you just sort of compress out all of the thing you might have wanted Simisear to do. Now you have like a free slot. Like usually you have like a on the end of a team you have one free slot where you can do literally whatever you want with. Simisear ends up being the most effective way of just like adding offensive pressure, adding wall breaking capacity, adding everything you want on it.
mm-hmm.
All of the like untangibles, all of the like things that you can't really put on a spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm. I think it also really took that over from other wall breakers we had before because that speed tier becomes more and more nice defensively. Because even though it really has no defensive utility, even compared to something like Aurorus, who has pretty bad defensive utility, by virtue of having speed, you're like, oh, now I have a mon that can actually revenge things. That's not like a Scarf Primeape where I have to be very careful about what I lock myself into. I know if Victory Bell gets a kill, I'm not gonna be like, "Go, what do I do now?" That's really, really important in this meta.
Exactly, and yeah, being a fire type that also doesn't give up to like jealous and free like real estate, I guess you can call it. Like that's also a big. Yeah, it's a really you can just pick its coverage as well. So like Tramp is an issue, you can just focus blast it, and it's like yeah, it's got so many things going for it.
Yeah, Simisear was not a very big mon in the meta for like most of PU, but I think if we look back on like the very end of the PU meta, I don't think anything's like gonna change again in Ultra Sun Ultra Moon PU. it's going to be listed as like one of those big noteworthy things that we have. You know, when we come back to like classic or whatever. Oh yeah, Simisear. That's the big thing. That's the guy. That's the monkey. Okay,
That's the scary thing.
home
I
stretch.
think
Oh no,
just
more.
a quick like I guess segue or like side note I guess we can call it. Um, I'd probably put Simisear as the second most broken Pokemon in this meta. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but for me it goes like Torterra is like the clear most like if we had to have a suspect test tomorrow, for example, I'd put Torterra 100% as the thing,
Yeah, I
and then
guess like it's more
Simisear.
broken. It's more broken than like Eel or Jellicent, but it's the who are the S ranks above it. But it's not like as good. And I certainly don't think I'd
Yeah,
ban it, but I do
yeah, I don't
agree
think
with
I'd ban
that.
it either.
I do agree with
It's
that.
just got
Yeah.
that. It's got that flavor, you know what I mean? Like, oh shit, my team just loses to Simisear, and it's like I can't do anything about this, but
Mhm.
it's like that.
I mean, we definitely have those LTPL games.
Yeah,
Anyway, now we're in the home stretch. We bumped Primeape up to A plus because Scarf Ape just became that big thing again. Like, oh, I guess this is just the only Scarf I'm gonna ever use again. I mean, not the only. Like, there's still some Scarf Dodrio and whatever. Even Scarf Sandslash is still a thing. But Ape just kind of came back in as happening to be that guy that just is great to fit onto all the teams, and that's really what has defined its shifts from like it's always gone between A plus and A minus. It just keeps going up and down and up and down based on how much we use Scarfape. And at the end of LTPL, the answer to how much we use it is a heck of a lot.
yeah. I think honestly, the big difference between Ape like before and Ape now is that like more people have started to mess around with the other sets, like the Choice Band and the like E-Belt sets, especially because like Jettison, like Mashana aren't running max defense anymore to like be a hard wall. You can go C bomb on your Primeape and really screw up a Jettison if you catch it on the switch. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's that has become more common. I've noticed that.
Yeah, there's
But
also been a little bit of innovation with like Ice Punch and Pursuit becoming more of things, but I don't even think those are like the big reasons. It's just those helped a little bit in how much we use them on. They're not the deal breakers by any means. Uh,
yeah,
Kadabra we bumped up a little bit because like I was using it, and then LST and you and a couple other people using it, and like it's fine. It was a little better than how we like it was originally at C, then we moved it to B minus because we're like, oh yeah, this is cool. It's just one of those things that like could have always been good, but there was no major messing with it until now. Like yeah, it's fine.
yeah. I think people just needed the validation that it could actually do things.
Mm-hmm.
Because like it's good, it's all well and good saying things on paper like, oh, this Pokemon's really good, maybe we should try it, right?
Yeah,
And
it's
then
it's like
you
Absol.
just
No.
what do you mean like absolutely?
Well, I think that's kind of the poster child for this. We always knew that it could be real good, but it was always hovering around like B, B minus, and not getting a ton of usage. And then finally, it was really Star and Soul Gazer, or was it just Star? I don't remember. That was like, okay, let's start using Absol. And now it's like, oh, CP Absol, that big threat. It's like an A minus thing. You see it a lot more now. I mean, there's always
Yeah,
been
that's
Mons
fair.
like that in PU. I think we still have like Zangoose is another thing that could have always been real good, but people just haven't been able to like mess with and really found the confidence in. Silvally Water, I think, could honestly get a lot better. Even Servine, maybe. I think there's definitely some Mons like this. Kadabra just happened to be the one where I was like, hey, let's mess with Kadabra, and now we just think it's better. That's how metas work. That's
Yeah,
just
it's
how
true.
they are. It's defined by what we do in them.
I think for Kadabra at least it really just benefits from having like the focus sash, and then being able to like tank any offensive hit. That's like useful.
I think Focus Sash is equally as good as Life Orb, to be completely honest. Sash is like this thing that's fine to work, but it's going to be kind of niche because of how weird it is to use on a team, whereas Life Orb is a really strong breaker. And having that speed tier of outspeeding Simisear is also massive. Like when I started picking it up again, I was like, I want a strong wall breaker that will outspeed Simisear, so that I'm not like, oh, I killed something. Now they're just gonna revenge me with Simisear, and that's when I went to Gadabra. because that's what it does. It's so strong, so strong. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
I to be honest, I should have messed with Kadabra a lot more than I ended up doing, but I feel like it's definitely got to a point. It's a really
Mm. Well, I mean, we had Mesprit for so long, like it was definitely
yeah.
destined to become overshadowed. Speaking of overshadowed for a long time, Leafeon, that's a cool mon. We bumped it up just to A minus, a little bit conservative, but people figured out now that I mean, to me, I think the big difference with Leafeon is now that we have Torterra, it has actual defensive value, and because it has any kind of defensive value, it's actually worth putting on a team. And now that it's worth putting on a team, we're able to really see how good the SD sets are and the Z Celebrate sets are, which are both really nice sets. Z Celebrate, totally solid win con that beats an awful lot of things and totally carried my seasonal run. Whereas SD is a really solid middle game wall breaker because it's really, really strong in this meta. Like it hits very hard for PU off like base 110 attack and how few grass resists we have and how pretty much all of them get hit by knockoff or double edge. Leaf good.
Leaf's really good. I think the the Z Celebrate set being so hard to revenge kill, just in general, is like that's probably since since Megazord, since Charizard,
Hmm.
that's it's we haven't had a Pokemon which was after you set it up was really hard to kill, like genuinely hard for like Scarfers and stuff to come back and kill. Like the most comparable thing is like Trick Room Jettison and
Yeah,
Rashan, right?
it's our trick room
In terms of
mons. It's the same idea of
exactly,
what if your Scarf Ape couldn't revenge my sweeper? Because most of our sweepers just get revenged by the standard Scarfers, but it does nicely against Scarf Ape. I think it can even tank a hit from Scarf Dodrio from full, but that's not really super relevant.
yeah,
But like
that's not
most
happening too
Scarfers,
often.
yeah.
It's it does well. It does well in that department. Yeah, definitely worth A minus. I think in this match.
Hmm. And it's one of the few things that like even if it's not the biggest thing around, I think it has warped well run on Mons, especially with Ferroseed. I really do feel the need to put Toxic on it because otherwise it is absolutely Fion bait, and that's no fun for anyone. Two more things that we actually did. There was Crabominable B plus to A minus because Subcrab real strong. Turns out when Stall becomes slightly more relevant, using that thing with like 134 base attack that's practically unwallable, that becomes a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
Jesus, Crab is just like strong and funky to mess with, and is like the kind of Pokemon that I live for in Mons, and it's something I rarely even use personally, but it's just so funny to see like how much people mess around with all these different things and how this Mon with super weird attributes, like a really slow ice fighting type, that's whack as shit. And at first, all we could think to do with it is just put it on Trick Room, but slowly it's evolved into like this well-rounded thing that does these subsets and these AV sets, and I think it's real cool.
Yeah, I think it goes off the same thing that made Dramper as well really good. But this was like the OG Dramper in a way because it was like ridiculous wall breaking capacity, big ability to break apart teams, but nobody really thought to give it some defensive or like make it um, like bulkier so that it can actually switch into things. And when we began to think, oh, if I give it if I give it an assault vest or if I give it like this HP investment,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes actually really difficult to kill. So it becomes a more consistent breaker, and like it becomes more useful to teams as well over in that case. And it definitely became a heck of a lot scarier when people started um, like abusing the switches way more consistently with the subset. That set is
Oh, I guess you broke up. That's okay. I totally agree with everything you said. Anyway, anyway, the last thing we did was rank Exeggutor at D. That also felt really out of nowhere, but like, yeah, it's a usable mon. Some people can be like, nah, this thing's probably like C rank, and other people probably don't even know why we ranked it. Um, Like
It does feel like that, doesn't it?
it's a
Like it's either C rank or D or C rank or E rank. It's like it's very rare that you find somebody who does. Oh no, D's alright.
yeah, it's a strong mon. Like for PU, it has a very strong offensive stats with the ability to do Trick Room or Specs or like Sleep Powder offensive sets or sub stuff that hits, it like it beats Torterra, Mudsdale, Regirock, etc. just by virtue of its typing. There's a lot to like about it. But then there's also like, oh my god, it has the worst defensive utility in the tier, or like the worst defensive typing. Um, I don't know. This one's
You can
really
do
up to
things.
the
You can do things
listener.
versus Tor. Yeah, you can do things versus Tor and versus certain choice locked Pokemon. You can
Mm-hmm.
use to set up Trick Room, and by nature of being like a grass type, you can obviously abuse like Regirock and Mudsdale and Torterra, and all of them like rockers. Like you can put them in a box and say, okay, I'm going to bring in Eggy and I'm going to click Leaf Storm, um, which is a cool thing. I think also like just in general, people became more aware of the TR like movement, I guess you can call it. And then like because it's a mon that can use TR quite well, it has Sleep Powder as well to essentially eliminate a check when you have Trick Room up, which is quite cool. Yeah, and then also the spec set can get around Skuntank like easily with HP Ground, which is also really cool.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it's
my
prediction
person,
reliant, so I
yeah,
won't just say easily, but yeah, it's got something for that.
yeah, I think the thing that makes it D rank because you can still have all those things like you can argue Duocean has all those things, but that's definitely not a D rank Pokemon. I think the thing that gives it D ranked for me is like Spec's ability to heal itself with Giga Drain, like a stab Giga Drain as well. Like it's a really strong drain. Um, that was the thing. That was the key defining aspect which made it good in like Oris NU. Because you could bring it in on like a Seismitoad and you have like 30% health,
Yep.
you Giga Drain, and then it's back up to 70, and then it's like it's really sustainable in that way. Like you can
Yep.
consistently get
Yep.
off
Yep.
those Giga
Yep. Yep.
Drains.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, that's what I would put in.
Mhm. Okay, so those are all the things what we did as a council. There's some things that we didn't do. We didn't drop Electros or Torterra from S, which I don't know. Neither of us were even close to wanting to drop either one from S. Um,
Yeah, no.
they're really good, and I don't have a good reason for why you would want to. This was also another case where like some people felt like yeah we could drop them, and I just was never seeing it. Skuntank was nominated to A plus. No, like it's a lot better than it was, but it's still not like full top tier Simisear level. I don't think. Again, we were
Yeah,
both we
it's
were
just
both
too.
pretty in lockstep on this. Same with like Girder dropping from A plus. Um, a few people were in favor of this, but overall, Girder is still just a very strong win con, and it's one of the few mons that I think like the more its checks get run, that just doesn't matter a lot to how good it is, because it'll totally just beat pom pom teams no problem anyway. You know?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of Gerda's checks are just abusable. Um, Even though there are a lot of them, they're all abusable in
Yeah,
some degree or aspect.
yeah,
And it's difficult to counterplay without one of those checks. So that's probably why it stays in A rank. I was personally in favor of dropping it just because it was like you
you.
had so many checks. Like teams were visually prepared for it, and that just put me off using it because like I would look at somebody's replays, for example, and see like 10 replays, and in every single one he has like visual counterplay to Gerda, even though it doesn't play like that in the game.
Mhm.
Just that entire like
Yeah, it looks like oh
pissed me off.
god, there's so much more sensu or whatever, and then you realize almost all of its checks are just some of the most pressurable, abusable things in the meta because they're all like weak to rocks or really get chipped by Girder itself. It's real whack, and I was never a big Girder person. Like if you just go back and look at my votes and talk about like the history of this meta, but right now, I think it deserves to stay just because the counterplay, relatively speaking, does not matter so much for this mon. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, it's one of those weird mods where it's way better in practice than it is in on the paper. And
Mm-hmm.
also like I just had that one replay of Tasked like was it reverse sweeping like Kitsap with the Spadef set? That was like etched into my memory as well to some extent. And I was like, oh shit, this thing is quite scary. Regardless.
Yep. And then the last thing was Hitmonchan B2B plus. I also voted against this, but yeah, I get why people like it. Like Life Orb Hitmonchan is a notably better set than like Hitmonchan has been in a long time. It's actually like strong and able of hitting all the things that would want to spin block it. And like I get it. I just still don't think there's anything pushing it up. Like it's a fine set, but to me when I voted no, I'm like, yeah, but is it like, whoa, Hitmonchan's clearly better than the Haunters or the Agrons or the Altarias? No, it's just like it's fine again. I accept it. It's a thing that's usable, but I didn't even want to put it in like, Lycanroc, Tangela, Articuno, the kind of things in B plus are like not the strongest. I still don't even think Hitmonchan really stacks up to those, to be completely honest. But you
Yeah, I
disagreed with
think.
me on this, I think. Oh no, you
No, I think.
voted. You voted.
Yeah,
Yeah, you voted no as well.
yeah. I think Hitmonchan did the reverse thing to Crab and Drampa, where as the meta got older, it went from a more bulky set to like a more like crazy offensive life orb set without much defensive utility. And I just don't generally agree with that like philosophy. Um, yeah, having a Pokemon that is perfectly capable of doing some defensive work, and then you're just deciding, nah, I'll be fine. It really benefit. It doesn't benefit enough from life orb for it to
Mm-hmm.
like justify removing all of that utility. So yeah, I think B is probably the appropriate rank for it at this point.
Yeah. So that's it. It's been about 40 minutes on the VR, and I think that just about covers what we wanted to talk about. Um, I like where the VR is in for the end of ORAS, blah, 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 generic concluding statements. We'll be back next week to talk about Classic and stuff. But I think this was a solid comeback thing to go around, just explaining, like, oh, yeah, here's the end of the VR. I don't think we're going to do a gimmick corner because we haven't really been, we've been taking a break off this meta. This meta's done. We hit the circuit. I don't think there's new stuff to do, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm just looking at my builder right now. I don't have any.
Yeah, you
I
said
don't
the
really
last
have
new thing you had was like stuff you're building for circuit finals. So
yeah.
I didn't think there'd be new things.
I'm now looking at like teams from like a year ago now, just trying to find like is there something I can salvage? No, I can't
Sure.
find any.
Let me look. Let me.
Oh, there's a goodbye on this team. There's a goodbye. Why did I have a goodbye on this team?
I think a bite's funny. It's not good, but like
It
it's
was a
a
Volt
funny.
resist. It's on a team of Volt resists.
What?
It's on a team of.
Why then?
Oh, it's an eel check. It's an eel check when eel was like the rage.
Yeah. Okay. Eel was really silly, and you're like, good bite. I don't know.
Yeah,
I can look back at. I talked about
okay,
Gorgas
that's
too
it.
much. Yeah. Okay. That's gonna be it, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you have lovely evenings, but not the rest of the day. That can suck. That's okay. Did I nail it? Did I nail the outro?
Nailed it. I think.
Sure. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.